Quick whiz through of the timings this weekend here on Sky Sports F1. We're live right now with the opening hour of practice. The more representative one will be from 1:45 when the floodlights come on. The F1 show wrapping up the day at 3:15. We're 7 hours ahead of you. Practice 3 is 10:15 on Saturday. 1 o'clock for qualifying on Saturday, and on Sunday we'll be on air from 11:30. The race getting underway at 1 o'clock, which is 8 o'clock local. Let's head up to Rachel Brooks in the commentary box.
The Formula One World Championship this weekend returns to Singapore for the Singapore Grand Prix. We are racing around the wonderful 19 corners of this circuit. Technically, make it 18. One of them don't count. 3 sectors to be battling with here this weekend. Well, the 3 sectors we're going to be doing battling with 4.927 kilometers of circuit. With technically 4.9 kilometers and 3 miles in length. Quite a long circuit, if I do say so myself. We're using 3 compounds of tyres, like we always do in Formula 1, C3, C4, and C5. Probably the tyre that will be used in this session is the soft compound tyre. That's at least my guess for this session. 6 rounds to go in the FIA Formula 1 World Championship. Here, round 18 out of 24, still 6 rounds to go. We're about to get underway for free practice 1 for the week. And this one should be good. It's not going to be a really indicative session, but it's going to be somewhat of a session for some of these drivers to really wrap their heads around what is going to happen. Rachel Brooks, Jenson Button, and Jamie Chadwick up in the commentary box for FP1. Here, there's a chance of rain, light to moderate winds as well. So, all sessions this week, again, we're expecting about 20 to 30 degrees. Ambient track temperature will be very much up there. With a chance of rain in every single session this weekend, Friday right through to Sunday, right up from FP1 right to the race on Sunday, it'll fling a bit of interestment into the air for the weekend indeed. But FP1 about to get underway. We'll have FP2 and FP3 as well. The second practice session tomorrow morning from 9 a.m. But yes, FP1 today is about to get underway. Let's head up to the Sky Sports F1 commentators, Jamie Chadwick and friends.
Tubes, as you say, which fill up with water, and it pushes the liquid through the system so that it keeps you cool while it works. If it doesn't work, you have hot water.
Well, this is what we were discussing actually earlier. So Jamie and I were watching very closely just before you joined us to see who was wearing it and who wasn't. So far, we can definitely say that the 2 racing bulls, Liam Lawson and Isaac Hadjar, are not wearing it. Yuki Tsunoda is not wearing it. We're not sure if Max is. But Alex Albon, Charles Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton, Ollie Bearman, Carlos Sainz, Nico Hulkenberg, Esteban Ocon and Charles Leclerc, all wearing it at the moment to try it out. And you were saying, Jamie, you would think you'd want to try it, wouldn't you, and just see?
I think there's a little bit of driver preference as to whether they're going to want to use it over the weekend or not. I think my preference definitely would be to use it. If it's going to be as hot and humid as we think it might be on Sunday, then definitely any advantage you can get with cooling, the better. But as Jenson said, it's not always the most comfortable feeling. You know, you sit in your seat and it's slightly sort of suffocating in a way. It's a different feeling that you have. It'd be interesting if they have changed seats, because I think some drivers do have different seats for street tracks for visibility and they sit a little bit higher. So if some drivers have changed their seats to do it with the cooling vest, I think that could be quite an advantage.
All right, well, one man who will spot if they change anything at all on any of the cars is our man strolling the pit lane, Ted Kravitz. Ted.
Hello, Rachel. Yes, good morning if you're watching us in the UK and Ireland, and well, approaching good evening here in Singapore. Still light, not as hot as it has been earlier on the day, obviously. It does tend to cool off in the evenings, and actually not as hot as I remember lots of free practice ones being in the past. It does seem to be some earlier rain has cooled down, but no rain at the moment, and so everything can focus on which of the two McLarens is going to end up on top. Lando Norris with more of a gap to close down, of course, at the front of the standings, with more of a job to do, has had the edge on Oscar Piastri for the last 2 races running. But I sense behind that crash helmet with the neon yellow chin there and the Australian flag at the top, the driver of car number 81, Oscar Piastri, has come here to Singapore, one of the closest races to his homeland of Australia, with a point to prove. The interesting thing he said to me yesterday about it, Rachel, was that the crash that he had at turn 5 on lap 1 in Baku was somewhat related to the jump start. So one mistake led to another. He said it's never easy to shake off a jump start and your frustration with it that quickly. So in a sense, easy, as Jamie, you've been saying yesterday in our program, easy to put that away, compartmentalize all of that. But he's got to get, this is where the hard work starts for Piastri. He's got to prove that he's got the pace, not only on his teammate Lando Norris, but also on Max Verstappen and Red Bull.
And the ability to shake it off, Ted, as you quite rightly said. I remember asking him after the race, was the crash related to the jump start? Was it a case of, I need to catch up now, I'm at the back of the field and I've got to get on top of this? But he did say that on Monday, to get over it, he just went shopping to the supermarket.
He's so unassuming. I think that's the thing, he's quite pragmatic in his approach. That's the way I think he needs to be. He didn't overanalyse it, I don't think he's overthought it too much. I think deep down, we spoke before about it, where his concern might be is the fact that, you know, he's lacked a little bit of performance to Lando over the last few races, and whereas before that would just put him P2 to Lando, now with Red Bull coming into the mix and other drivers finding a bit of performance, suddenly you're in this uncomfortable position of finding yourself outside of that top bracket, and I think that's what he's going to focus on this weekend.
And for Lando, last weekend, I mean, the question he got faced with the most after the race was that an opportunity missed? And he said, well, why is everyone asking me if it was an opportunity missed?
It's fact, it was. But everyone knows that, and he knows that. But the thing with Oscar, yeah, hopefully he's put it behind him, but he's come from one street circuit to another, which also isn't easy. There's a few more runoff areas if you do push the boundaries, but not easy. For Lando, yeah, of course it is. But I think a lot of it was lost on Saturday in qualifying, where the pace just wasn't there in those conditions, where it was a bit of rain falling, taking away a bit of confidence when no one else has got anything to lose. He does, so he probably held back a little bit more, but he still got 6 points. You know, if they were fighting for first and second, he finished first. It's just 1 point more, so it's still a lot of points to take.
So are we expecting McLaren to find the pace again this weekend? Are we expecting them to be back on top this weekend?
Yes, from what everyone's saying in terms of it's a high downforce track. Always got some warm brakes there. Downforce track, it seems to suit them a little bit better, or not suit others as much. But you know, this is a track that also rewards bravery, and there's a couple of guys out there that I think can be very brave and also fight for that pole position, I think.
Max Verstappen being one of them,
Yeah.
Jamie.
Exactly. And I think when it comes to it and conditions are challenging, we saw it in Baku, he's going to take the absolute maximum out of it. And yeah, it'd be really interesting to see where they stack up, because if they found performance with their car at this circuit, then absolutely he's got the bit between his teeth and it's game on.
I mean, for Max to have won the last 2 races and then to come here, if he could win here, that is properly sending a statement out to McLaren and the rest of the grid that Red Bull are in a fight for the rest of the season, isn't it?
It is, but it's also how many points can he take off them. I think that's the thing. If you look at the grid and how close it is, that's relying on McLaren having weekends like they did at Baku regularly, which I think for their sake I hope they don't have. But at the same time, I think Max, if there's an opportunity and the car is there and within, even just has to be close to the window of being capable of winning races, he's absolutely going to do that. He's a 4-time world champion. He's very experienced in these kind of situations, and he's up against 2 drivers that are in slightly more unknown territory.
And this is, go on. Well,
If it is just Max fighting with those two, every race, yeah, I don't think he's got a chance of fighting for the championship. But if McLaren fall back a little bit into the clutches of a few other cars, then there is more possibility.
And if he ever needed any more motivation, which is unlikely for Max Verstappen, he's been here 8 times, he's never won around here, it's the one circuit left on the calendar, and he just wants to get this one chalked off.
I was going to say, it's the one track he's not won at. Imagine that as a stat. 23 of the tracks that we raced at this year, he's got those ticked off, and I think that's not through his own reasoning as well. I think it's a track that they've obviously struggled at a lot before. And I wonder if it's also a little bit of a track that he's not necessarily found the flow in. So not only is the car going to have to find a lot of performance here versus last year and the previous years, last year maybe not as bad as previous years, but you know, he's got to also maximise it and get everything out of it like we saw in Baku.
Well, he's running the new front wing. Red Bull's still developing this car this season. One of the few teams left to do it. Mercedes has also got a new front wing this weekend, but Max has got the new one on. Yuki's got the old one on at the moment. If you want to see exactly what it looks like on board with Max Verstappen and that new front wing, you can do so, because all you need to do is get this QR code. Use this and download the Sky Sports app to your phone or tablet device by scanning that. Sky Sports F1 and now viewers. It's all 20 drivers on board and their team radio you can listen to as well. Once you get there, log in with your Sky ID, head to the Sky Sports F1 channel and choose your driver. Sky Glass, Sky Q and Sky Stream customers, you can also access this by the interactive button on your remote control, and you can have a really close look at what it's like to drive around this track. You talked about high downforce, but what skills, bravery you mentioned, Jensen, what skills do you need around here?
What street courses are definitely the ones that you build up to.
Let's go down to Ted actually, because there's something in the pit lane. Ted?
Alex Albon's car is on fire. He's got a brake fire, so something's happened on the brake, clearly on either the brake by wire or something very, very serious has happened here, because the brakes are still on fire. He came in, the Williams guys were waiting with the extinguishers. They knew that something was up, but they still can't get this brake fire extinguished, and they're leaving the car in the pit box. Right behind it, the signature smell of burning carbon. And these things are still on fire. There's still smoke running from the rear tyres. And what a terrible start to the weekend for Alex Albon. They are putting him back into the garage now. I don't think that's a good idea, lads. The garage is now completely covered in smoke. You've got to leave him out in the pit lane. Oh my goodness, this is all over the place. Still with the Williams mechanics trying to extinguish this brake fire. This is somewhat of a runaway brake fire for Williams. And you can see it now. I'm sure they're showing it. I don't have
We are indeed. We're also seeing Alex sort of squinting a lot as well as the smoke's getting into his eyes, and they've pushed the car back out.
He's breathing it in. He should get out. He is getting out now.
I'm not sure why they have taken the tyres off. Why they haven't taken the wheels off to let them air.
Well,
what they're doing, Jensen, is turning the wheels to try and rotate the disc to get as much cooling from it. But I think they're also thinking that they... Oh, you got some radio now?
Fire. Green default 1-5 when you can. Green default 1-5, single OK.
That's interesting. It looked like both as well.
They were definitely both on fire.
Both
the system's failed, I'm guessing.
The brake cooling system.
Yeah. Well, no, the brake system has failed. It's just using the brakes rather than, from the hybrid system. So that's probably the issue. They're not very big discs that they have on the cars on the rear now.
Alex is out going into the garage, probably to get some fresh air as well, I would imagine. Still plenty of smoke around there as well. Thanks very much for the moment, Ted. As move back onto some track action, Jensen. But sorry, do you want to just talk us through this lap with Max as we go around this circuit for the first time?
Yes. So this left down is always a funny one. You think you can always take more speed through here. It's kind of off camera, and then you go through this little... It's changed. Oh, it's not a chicane really anymore. This is the chicane. It's changed a little bit more over the years, and it seems a lot faster, a lot less technical in terms of you haven't got to ride the big curbs. This is a tough one, as Anthony was saying. You're always locking the front outside tyre because you're slightly laterally loaded braking for that left-hander across the bridge. This looks like such a cruisy lap for Max, and he's 4 tenths up at the moment. It just shows you how little grip there is to play with out there. And a long straight down here. Heavy braking there, locked up the front inside, ran wide with the apex. Circuit does look very dusty. It always does, and it takes time for them to get to grips with that. But it will improve a lot through this FP1 session. That is a very, very tricky corner, the last one. Very long and also quite bumpy, unsettles the rear of the car.
loads of track evolution across the weekend here as well, as you always get with street tracks anyway, but yeah.
Exactly, and it is a proper street track. They're using these roads daily. It's not, it's another lock-up for Charles Leclerc as he goes deep, and it looks super low grip out there at the moment.
Ted, back down to you, Ted. Have they managed to sort it at Williams?
Well, it's still burning, Rachel, so no. The car is still burning. The car is still in the pit lane. The FIA are now getting involved, as of course they would. It's a safety issue at this point. Everyone's kind of keeping their distance as they should do. And it looks like now all the surrounds are now starting to, the carbon fibre surrounds are starting to burn. I don't know whether they're going to actually take the rear tyres. Jensen, the rear tyres are still on. They're now getting even more extinguishers. They must have got through about 3 or 4 fire extinguishers so far, both CO2, and actually I haven't seen any water fire extinguishers or halon or anything like that. It's all CO2 being sprayed on it. But this Williams is still burning itself on its rear end in the pit lane, and that is, never mind default 1 or 2, whatever it was, that was obviously related to the regen system failing and this starting this in the first place. The Williams engineers would have seen that on the telemetry, but this is Albon's car out, certainly for the rest of this session, and that's a really tricky fire to recover from and rebuild the back of that car.
All right, thanks for the moment, Ted. And while we were talking to you and hearing from you there, we saw drivers having tricky moments on track, Jensen. Some very close moments to the wall too.
Yeah, that's the moment we saw earlier with Charles, that corner we were talking about, where the actual outside tyre, the unweighted or the weighted tyre, is actually locking up into the left-hander there. But yeah, very low grip. It's always tricky at this time because drivers are trying to find their limits. There's such little grip out there, and also there's really quite a big difference when they are running on the hard tyre.
You want to build your confidence though, don't you? I mean, you're trying to build your confidence, but there's very little grip. So is there a really sort of fine crossover point where you finally go, oh, I've got the grip now I can really push?
There is, but also I think just with the track evolution, you know what you're feeling now, the balance of the car, where you're at is going to be so different come, say, qualifying, when you've done a lot of laps on the track, there's rubber down, and the track temperature's lower as well. So I think at the moment it's just gathering data, getting a feel for the circuit, obviously not having big lockups, putting it in the wall at this stage, but at the same time it's not going to feel completely representative come later in the weekend.
Probably the last thing drivers want to do. You've got to be patient.
Yeah, it is just driving around at the moment because, yeah, this is it's definitely not representative. But there's a lot of information, as you said, that they can take for FP2.
Alonso's up there, but on the medium tyres, him and Armstrong both out on the mediums now in the Aston Martins. And it's, I mean, what are we expecting? I think we'll hopefully speak to Andy Kell at some point during this session shortly, but for Aston Martin, Baku was tough. So is this track going to suit them, do you think?
Well, it's a high downforce track, so it's very, very different. It is still a street track, but much higher downforce. It's funny that we talk about it being a high downforce track back here because all the corners are very slow, aren't they? But it's big straight, so you need to have an efficient car. Here there are quite a few mid-speed corners, so you do need that downforce on the car, especially through the last corner that Carlos is just coming up to now. He's on a pretty good lap as well. The car's hooked up pretty well. He's got a lot of confidence. There he goes, P1.
Bringing loads of confidence with him from Baku. I sat down with him actually able to see this across the weekend and spoke to him about it, and he said he's just been desperate to have a clean weekend where 1, he didn't have any mistakes, 2, the car was working perfectly, and he said he finally got it and went, there you go, that's what I can do. And I said to him, right, we need more Bakus then, and he said, yeah, exactly, I need clean weekends.
And that's what I love about this midfield battle actually, is the fact that I think for any of those teams, when everything goes together and they've got, clean weekends, cars working well, drives working well, no mistakes, then they can put it on the podium. We've seen it with Isaac Hadjar, Nico Hulkenberg a little bit more of an anomaly, but still, I think you can see these midfield teams rise fully up the ranks, and for Carlos, I think he needed that weekend for confidence for himself, but also to show the team that that's why they hired him, that's what he's here to do, and can deliver when it matters.
Also added Uber driver to his CV last weekend on the way back from Baku when their flight got diverted, and he and Charles had to go and get a rental car. The only thing left was a van. Can you imagine being the person at the rental car desk and Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc walk up to hire a car? I've only got a van left, I'm really sorry. And they drove the rest of the way.
I did hear they gave him a good deal though. I think they were looking for the best deal and they just wanted to get the car as quick as possible, and the rental lady was saying, no, I can get you a better deal on this car. So yeah, hopefully they were well looked after.
It's a better story, isn't it, that they're in a van
than
a nice car.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. Right, let's just see how Max goes on this lap then at the moment. Yeah, as you were saying, Jensen, everyone out on the hard tyres, they probably will choose the two hardest compounds of the race, won't they?
Yeah, it's always the way though in this session. You'd always want to run the harder tyre, because with sliding on track, you're going to grain the other two tyres, and also you want a tyre that's consistent, because the track is going to improve so much. You want the tyres to still be there at the end of the session.
And I think save a set of the softs for. I think FP2 is normally quite a representative session in the night for qualifying. A little bit less what we see at usual tracks, where FP3 seems to be the most representative here. FP2 is a bit closer, but save those tyres to get those performance runs in later in the weekend.
The traction seems to be really good on the Red Bull, even on this tyre and on this, with the track being green. It's the understeer really that's costing a bit of time. And as we know, Max isn't a big fan of understeer normally.
No, much prefers a bit of oversteer.
Yeah, neutral balance, he feels that he can work with it better, but yeah, it's quite an understeery car. But P2, 4 tenths between the medium shod Alonso Aston Martin.
2 tenths quicker than the McLaren at the moment on the same tyre, which very, very early signs, but early good signs.
Could be in for a real battle here this weekend. GP, Giampiero Biasi, Max's race engineer, the voice you hear on the radio to Max during the race. Let's see what the Mercedes can do, because George Russell actually said that he thinks the Ferraris could actually be on for a really good weekend here this weekend, could be ahead of the Mercedes.
I think he was basing that a little bit off previous as well. They've never been a million miles away here. Charles last year was strong, and then also Carlos the year before winning here. So I think he's basing that on previous, but I think that's the thing with, you don't know exactly, you kind of predict that McLarens are going to be up there. Most of the time they predict further ahead than perhaps they have been in recent races. But then that sort of pack afterwards, it can go either way. Mercedes can be sort of outright second, Ferrari can be outright second, or Red Bull can be. So it's always very close, and I don't think they fully know, apart from maybe with the temperatures for Mercedes being weakness, who's going to be strong when and where.
Got a yellow flag. Somebody has stopped. Have they out? The track note's clear already.
The weakness of the Ferrari at the moment and the Mercedes would be sector 1. They're losing a couple of tenths in sector 1. Which is actually quite a short sector, only 27 seconds long, so that seems to be the area where they need to improve.
Well, don't forget, the race this weekend is at a perfect time for our viewers back in the UK. 1 o'clock race start on Sunday, lights out, under the lights here in Singapore at 1 o'clock on Sunday afternoon. So make sure that is in your diaries, or set yourself a reminder for that one. It's going to be a good one this weekend. It's a fantastic backdrop, isn't it, for a race? I mean, I know it's the original night race and it's a proper street track, but when you look at it and when the lights come on, when you come back for FP2, it looks sensational.
It's incredible. My favourite thing about this track is I've been to Singapore before there's been an F1, or before there was the F1 sort of all set up, is just physically looking at where the F1 Grand Prix is and where the circuit is, and imagining F1 cars going around there, and then obviously it's actually coming into fruition. So it's an incredible place, it's an incredible circuit, and I think one of the drivers love for that reason.
1,600 light projectors, it's brighter than any other typical sports venue, 4 times brighter. Talking of bright, Ted, what have you got for us?
Thank you, Rachel. Yes, I've got confirmation from Williams about Albon's problem, and they're saying that it was actually a hardware problem on the rear brakes. So the cooling, so there was a problem with the caliper binding on. They have had this with Sainz, haven't they, earlier on? Do you remember Austria?
Yes.
With the rear brakes. I'm not saying it's the same thing, but they had a hardware problem on the rear brakes before this season. So there's what they're saying is that they don't seem, well, what they seem to be saying is that it wasn't a brake-by-wire failure that was not allowing the rear brakes to be turned out, to be slowed down, or rather the rear axle to be slowed down by the Earth system, the MGUK, and that just led the rears to overheat because they were doing too much work. What they're saying is that there seems to be an actual hardware problem with the rear brakes themselves. So maybe that default engineer's message to Albon was to increase the engine braking, to take the stress off the rear brakes themselves, that they could see weren't doing the job that they were meant to be doing, and that led to the fire. So confirmation also from Williams that he's out for the rest of FP1. I think we knew that. The fact it was on fire for 3 minutes kind of underlined that. But we're confident we can fix the problem and get him out for free practice 2. So not much lost in terms of relevant track position conditions. but a lot lost in terms of getting your eye in the circuit for Alex Albon himself.
Indeed, thank you very much, Ted. We've just seen Lando Norris go quickest, but we're on board with Pierre Gasly at the moment. Who's gone on?
It's a bit earlier in the session, I think, when we saw the yellow flag, just gone a little bit deep as Lewis Hamilton is.
I wince around this track when I'm watching these onboards.
Well, I don't find it anywhere near as scary as that.
Really? Or
Yeah.
jet speed? Yeah.
For me, is for a street track, incredibly high speed.
One thing that's amazing about this track is how they've changed it over the years.
We've lost the slingshot.
But how do you change your street track as much as they've been able to? It's amazing. So yeah, it's there's a lot that's changed. Some will say for the better, and it probably is a bit faster, a bit more flowing maybe.
Would you prefer it without the chicanes that we used to have?
They were really tricky.
Yeah.
And then you go into the little tunnel as well.
Yes.
It was very, very narrow there. I don't think you're taking away overtaking opportunities, but it was definitely challenging.
More challenging then, in your
I
day.
set more corners. More corners, so it's
No,
always
I
more
racing drivers always
challenging.
say it was more challenging
If it
in my
was a
day.
straight, it wouldn't be challenging. So it's when you put the corners in that it gets more challenging.
Great stuff. All right, well, we've had 20 minutes or so far of this first practice session here in Singapore. And Lando Norris has just put in the quickest time of the session. Max Verstappen very close behind, though. And Fernando Alonso in the medium third.
Yeah, and it still isn't a bad lap time. You know, he's on the medium tyre, obviously, but he's only a tenth off.
When you put the mediums on, I know the teams all have their different run plans and everything else, but do you need to give your drivers a bit of confidence sometimes and give them a quicker tyre, or is it not
I'm not
about
sure
that?
that's why they've done it for Fernando Alonso, though. I think that guy's
Well,
full of confidence.
I think
he's
he's got quite a
brimming.
lot. Yeah, to be fair.
It's just part of their run plan. I don't know why they're doing that, but they're doing it with both cars.
Liam Lawson 2 tenths down on Lando Norris, so he's quite far down still on Isaac Hadjar, which makes Hadjar's early lap super impressive.
Right, let's go down and find out what Ted's got for us in the pit lane. Ted.
From Alpine, Rachel, where
Yes.
Pierre Gasly's doing a bit of testing, 17th at the moment. Colin Pinto's just had a problem with his steering wheel. It looked like that it wasn't quite seated correctly. They changed the steering wheel and they put a new one back in, and they're checking that it's all right. But I don't know if you can see Franco in the car. The way he likes to cool himself is to have one of these quite high-powered cooling fans with a small nozzle directly into the visor through the visor of the slot in his crash helmet. It's like one of those, you know, the opposite of, you know, that attachment on your vacuum cleaner.
Yes, I know the one. Where you're trying to get into the nooks and
Into the
crannies.
nooks and
Yeah.
crannies. It's basically the reverse of that, with air flowing extremely quickly right into his eyes. I mean, my eyes would be in pools of tears if I did that. But obviously, that's the way that Colin Pinto likes to cool himself down.
Wow, that's
Well,
like jumping out of a
extraordinary.
plane. You know when you get that wind on your face when you do a parachute jump? Surely it's a similar effect.
Well, and also it's bringing air from the garage. Do you know what I mean? It has a little filter, but it's taking in the carbon dust and everything and putting it straight into his eyes. And now we always did it very differently than that. You never wanted it in your eyes, maybe up your suit.
I don't want to expose Franco too much here, but I do believe he is a bit of a sweater. He sweats a lot, and so it's the worst feeling when you've got sweat dripping in your eyes as well. So maybe he's just trying to dry out. Just trying to see if there's another reason for it.
He's a bit of a sweater.
I'm a sweater as well, so I can relate to it. I've got big eyebrows
So
to try and stop them, but
But I was going to say then, so I mean, I remember Nico Rosberg telling us the story one year of how he contained the sweat within his race helmet during the race in Malaysia. So the Nomex, the balaclava, the helmet, there's nothing in there that absorbs it. It can just literally run down your face.
the Nomex and the helmet, everything absorbs it, but not to the extent of sometimes the amount you sweat, and you do just feel it drip into your eyes every now and then, and it's horrible.
Yeah.
Only don't sweat.
I'm really sorry to Andy Cowell, who is team principal at Aston Martin. He's sitting on the pit wall at the road this weekend and is ready to join us. And apologies, Andy, if you heard the end of that conversation. It was very important, though, to understand what the drivers are facing around this track here in Singapore. Good to talk to you. We're just seeing Fernando now, actually. Can you just tell us what you're expecting from this weekend?
Yeah, hello. It's a challenging race weekend for the drivers and everybody else that's here, isn't it? You know, trying to stay at UK time. But from our performance perspective, we're hopeful that we've got a car that likes this track. There aren't any high-speed parts to the circuit. Lots of low and medium speed. So yeah, just trying to understand the car at the moment, understand the tyres, and then progress from there.
Hello, it's Jensen here. I just wanted to ask, obviously Baku wasn't the best race for you guys. This is another street circuit. Why do you think it's going to be so different to Baku? Obviously you're running more downforce. Is that the reason why you think the circuit works better? You say it's all slow speed corners, but there aren't really many quick ones in Baku either.
Hi Jensen, good to hear you. I guess this is a little bit like Baku, but without sector 3. Yeah, so lots of 90-degree slow speed corners, but without the challenge of sector 3, where the downforce level pushes the car down, and you've got to watch skid wear in sector 3. Here we don't have that, so everybody can run the cars a little bit lower. And we've got maximum downforce rear wing on to go with that. So yeah, we think it suits our characteristics more.
Hi Andy, so just explain to us a little bit about your run plan in this session. You guys are a little bit offset on the medium tyre at the moment. Fernando's just gone up into P1 there, but explain to us what you're trying to get out of this session. Obviously, track conditions and evolution is naturally going to be very high across the rest of the weekend.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, we've gone out on the mediums. This session's different to qualifying in the race. The sun's out, the track temperature's a little bit higher. And also you see quite a lot of track evolution and also driver evolution through the session. You know, it's an unforgiving track, so for the drivers to build into the rhythm of the circuit. So we're looking at different ride heights, some